we finally, after what, 4 long years, something crazy like that, we finally have a Make Them Suffer album. So Make Them Suffer released self-titled album, Make Them Suffer.
With how long we waited, what is the general feeling on whether it was worth the wait?
Yes.
No.
No.
But so I don't think this album is sonically, I don't think this album is that out there. Like, it doesn't feel very special to me. But the story it tells is very unique, in my opinion.
So I wasn't captivated enough to go back and listen enough times to get the story out of it. So I would love to hear from you, what because I know you've got the lore, right? Like, you're the Make Them Suffer lore guy.
This is just off listening. Like, I haven't done like a deep dive into lyrics. Like, this is just from what I've heard in the songs. Like, this is what I can gather from the lyrics I can understand. And but basically it's about like war, first of all, is like the main thing. But I guess like a soldier who is basically like weaponized, as the title says, and turned into something he isn't. In you can hear that in Weaponized, and then in Oscillator there, I think kind of like pumping him full of drugs and making him into like a super soldier. Imagine like Captain America kind of shit. And then Doom Switch and Monogod are both the actual war. And then Epitaph is after the war, realizing this is what I've done. And then the rest of it is the aftermath of the war, where like you can get like Ghost of Me is like he's a totally different person and unrecognizable, and it's not very in depth, but that's the general idea I get from it. It's not a story you've really heard anywhere.
I would be interested to go back and listen to it under that lens then, because I guess I didn't understand a lot of what I was.
And I think it goes into like self guilt and stuff like that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I would be very interested to find something to connect to on this, because the reason why I said that it wasn't worth the wait for me is because I don't feel like, for me, a lot of the singles didn't deliver, but also some of the newer songs didn't deliver for me either. Like, if I go to see which I saved off of this, like, of the new ones, I think Small Town Syndrome, Tether, and Venusian Blues, and everything else I just wasn't really feeling at all. I wish that this band would have taken the opportunity to really lean into the electronics on this.
Yeah.
And I don't know
That
if
would've been
it's
cool.
because
Like Avoid a Vision.
Stars. Yeah, very much like Avoid a Vision. That I feel like that's, to me, is what makes this band unique at this point. Like, we've reached a point in the scene where it's not like having a metalcore band with a female vocalist isn't like, you can't make that your identity anymore, because there are a ton of them out there and they're really good. And I feel like what this band has historically excelled on is incorporating those electronics into their music. And here I hear it, but I don't feel like it's any better off than any of their other albums, or any of the standalone singles. So I had higher expectations for where I thought this band would go and where they could take us, especially with the change from Booka to Alex. Um, I know you have certain opinions on who the better vocalist between the two is.
Yeah.
And I do as well, but I don't know, as somebody who loved Drown This City, I was really excited to see where this band would go with Alex, and I think I still believe in their potential, but for me, they didn't reach it at all with this album. I
I
listened 3
I
times.
can I can agree. Like I think a lot of the breakdowns are very similar.
Yeah.
Um and yeah, it feels very generic as well. I think another thing is Doom Switch and Ghost of Me. If they released this year, this album would be a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. Unequivocally. But having heard them and I mean, I know we had differing opinions on what the best single was, but for me, Ghost of Me was far and away the best single. And so when I have that as a bar and none of the other non-singles are reaching it, the singles that I did enjoy, like for instance, Oscillator really fell off for me, Doom Switch fell off for me, if I'm being so for real. Like, I don't know. Maybe I built the album up too much in my head, but I felt like we could do so much more with it. Like as a band, as an album, given some of the things that the singles leaned into, it just feels like not wasted potential to me, but just potential that wasn't realized or lived up to. Which I would love to see how it gets into it on the next project, but I wanted it to happen, at least for me, on this one, and I didn't get that.
After hearing the album in full, like I knew Doom Switch when it came out. It was about war. Like that's
Mhm.
what I knew that. But after hearing it with like the whole album in full, like I didn't think Ghost of Me or Oscillator or what was the other single? Epitaph. Um they didn't feel connected to me, but I think after hearing it in the album, I think that's where this album shines for me is the
Mhm.
story.
I think I need to go back and give that a listen with that context and see if I can piece something together. Because I really truthfully haven't invested all too much into listening to this because of how I felt at its face. But if there's something that can get me to connect to it and appreciate it more, I'd totally get in there.
And we gotta shout out the freaking Make Them Suffer call out in
Yes, that was
Weaponized.
sick.
It was sick.
More bands need to do that. They
Yeah.
need Knocked Loose and
Cold State.
Yup.
I know you listened to that Cold State EP already this year. I've been pretty quiet. I've been letting you guys.
I
hear
was
your
gonna
grievances,
say,
so to say.
we both said it didn't live up to
Yeah.
the wait, and you said it did. So the floor is yours, Jake.
So let's also. I'm going to take that floor analogy real quick. Let's consider the floor that their 2020 album had me at. Right. That album had Erase Me and Soul Decay, and otherwise was fairly forgettable as far as I'm concerned. I did not like songs like Bones that were overtly extremely heavy, and admittedly this song had that too, or this album had that too. Man of God, still not one of my favorite songs on this album, and it's the heaviest song on here. I don't like when Sean gets that low. I just generally don't like metalcore that goes that low that hard. However, I like significantly more than just 2 songs on this album. So to say that the floor has been elevated would be an understatement as far as I'm concerned, given where I felt about them in the past and where I view them after this album has come out and throughout all the singles. Doom Switch has not fallen off in any capacity to me. That electronic breakdown after the second chorus is still fucking nuts. I still love it. Ghost of Me is still a phenomenal song. I'm still going back and forth on whether or not Doom Switch or Ghost of Me is the best song on here. I listen to one and I'm like, it's Doom Switch. I listen to Ghost of Me and I'm like, fuck, it's Ghost of Me. And there are very few albums that reach such high highs that have me debating so hard over which song is actually the best. And I think that's a bit of a testament to the songwriting and just how memorable a lot of the songs on here have been, and even touching on some of the non-singles that you said didn't really resonate with you. The intro of The Warning as it transitions into Weaponized is so sick that kind of it's that like opening riff feels almost Motionless in White-esque before it really transforms into a Make Them Suffer song. Where you get Sean and Alex both screaming, just the way they trade vocals back and forth is phenomenal. Alex sounds great in the chorus, as she does on just about every chorus she sings on here. And then on the backside of the album, Tether and Small Sound Syndrome I also think are phenomenal. Tether being my favorite of the non-singles, that ending breakdown at the end of Tether is fucking nuts. You get that like slow dropout before just the fucking crazy electronics and guitars come together in such a classic Make Them Suffer style breakdown. I think you were saying that the electronics need to shine more. I think Tether is one of the standout moments for those electronics on this album. If Doom Switch is not in contention for that, like Tether is absolutely one of the highlights in terms of the electronics that Make Them Suffer kind of been known for. And even in the moments that are more generic, like, yeah, a lot of the breakdowns sound kind of similar. Like the breakdown in Oscillator and Doom Switch, they do sound fairly similar, but that doesn't mean they're not cool as hell, as far as I'm concerned. They're still really fun to listen to. They're still really groovy. They're still really chunky. They're groovy. And Epitaph as well. That song released earlier this year, and I spent a shit ton of time listening to it, and I still think that song's phenomenal. Like, the only weak spots on this album for me are No Hard Feelings and Venusian Blues. Those two songs I have not resonated with as much, but given how I felt about their last album and how, like, I thought that Make Them Suffer were never going to be a band that, like, I thought Make Them Suffer were going to become, like, a fucking, like, Moss to Flame situations, where I like a couple of songs from them, and that's kind of how it's always going to be, but this album has completely changed my perspective on Make Them Suffer as a band and has completely revitalized their image from a band that I never would have even considered to have a chance at like a top 20 album of the year. And now they're fighting for an argument as a top 10 album of the year, let alone one of the best metalcore albums I've heard all year.
I'm glad at least.
And all of that to say, the whole story thing that Jacob was saying about war, I never internalized any of that. That's all me just enjoying this album on the pure musicality of it. Nothing about really the lyrics, nothing about the story that's being told. That's just me front to back listening to this album and deciding I had a damn good time with this, and I would have a damn good time with it again.
I can't imagine. The year is 2024. Jake is the only one who's said that it was worth the wait. That's crazy.
Right? Like, it is crazy.
Yeah, it'd be more crazy
That's
if Justin
gross.
said it. But
That is true.
True. Justin, did you like any song on this album?
No. Continue.
Yeah, not even Small Town Syndrome.
It's all right.
That's something.
We'll take it all right.
We'll take it all right. Yeah, no, the fact that Make Them Suffer even in contention for a top 10 album, I will say, based off of Doom Switch, Ghost of Me, and Epitaph as the 3 lead singles, I was saying at the beginning of this year that Make Them Suffer should be a top 10 album of the year lock, based off of how strong those singles are. I can't say that they are a top 10 lock, but with having had almost a full month with the album now, it is absolutely in consideration for a top 10 spot. Still need to finalize that list, but we're getting there.